Did God really hate fire? Seriously, did he just not get it? For centuries, brilliant minds wrestled with this very question, a tiny spark of theological debate igniting into a roaring intellectual inferno. It all started with a monk named Scotus, a man obsessed with understanding how the divine worked, specifically how it interacted with, well, everything, and he wasn't alone. A rival, a fiercely logical thinker named Ockham, entered the fray, armed with a different approach, a more pragmatic one. Let's dive into this crazy historical puzzle, a messy, brilliant, and surprisingly fiery clash of ideas. Imagine a medieval university, all stone walls and echoing halls. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, illuminating dusty tomes and the furrowed brows of scholars. Disputes weren't about sports scores or social media trends, they were about the very nature of reality. Our protagonist, Scotus, was a big believer in habits, those ingrained tendencies like a muscle memory for the soul. He argued that when you experience something, say, the warmth of a fire, you weren't just seeing it, you were becoming it, a little bit united with its essence. It was a deeply personal, almost mystical connection. He believed this union, this disposition, was the key to understanding how God and the world interacted. Think of it like a sculptor slowly, painstakingly shaping a block of stone. The sculptor's spirit, his habit, was subtly influencing the stone's form. But Ockham, he was a different beast altogether. A methodical, almost ruthlessly clear thinker, he approached the world like a clockmaker, stripping away unnecessary complexity. He didn't care about mystical unions, he cared about causality, how things caused other things to happen. His mantra was simple, Occam's razor, meaning the simplest explanation is usually the best. He was a master of logic and he saw Scotus's ideas as, well, a bit fuzzy. Let's talk about accidents. These were everyday things, the color of a rose, the sound of a bell, the heat of a fire. Scotus thought these accidents weren't just present in things, they were fundamentally part of them, woven into their very being. Ockham, however, saw them as separate, like little satellites orbiting a planet. He argued that an accident, say, the redness of a rose, wasn't in the rose, it was related to it, a separate entity influencing the rose's appearance. It's like saying a painting isn't made of pigment but influenced by it. Now, this was a huge sticking point. Scotus believed that accidents could be the cause of things, that the heat of a fire could, in a sense, create a burning sensation. Ockham vehemently disagreed. He argued that a fire could only influence a burning sensation, it couldn't cause it. God, he insisted, was always the ultimate cause, a divine conductor orchestrating the entire cosmic symphony. To illustrate this, imagine a brilliant but slightly arrogant fire. Scotus thought it could, on its own, ignite a piece of wood. Ockham said no way. He argued that the fire was only a partial cause, assisted by God's power. It's like a drummer and a band, they can create a great rhythm, but they need the conductor to bring the whole performance together. The debate quickly escalated into a battle of principles. Scotus championed eminence, arguing that every cause had to be at least as perfect as its effect. The fire had to be as hot as the wood it was burning. Ockham scoffed at this. He said, that's ridiculous, a tiny spark can ignite a giant log. The spark isn't as perfect as the log, but it's still a cause. He introduced his own ideas about causal nobility, insisting that God's power was so immense that it automatically made any created cause more perfect than its effect. It was like saying a single drop of rain is more perfect than a vast ocean. Both are essential, but the rain is the catalyst. Let's get weird. The scholars started arguing about worms and ashes. Specifically, what happened when a consecrated host, the bread used in Catholic Mass, decayed. Scotus, sticking to his ideas about accidents, suggested that the worms and ashes were the result of the accident of heat corrupting the accident of redness. It was a gradual, almost poetic process. Ockham, predictably, had a different take. He argued that it wasn't a corruption, it was a creation. He pointed out that the bread and wine had vanished, leaving only the remnants behind. There was no matter left to transform, no prime matter to be rearranged. It was a new creation, entirely dependent on God's power. This led to a philosophical nightmare. If God could create something from nothing, how could the concept of nothing even exist? It was like trying to define a color you've never seen. Ockham argued that purum nihil, pure nothing, was meaningless. It was simply a way of saying that the bread and wine had been utterly destroyed, leaving no trace behind. Then came the question of quantity. Could a fire become hotter or colder? Scotus believed that the fire's heat was an inherent property, a part of its being. Ockham argued that it was a change, a movement of substance and quality. He used the analogy of a cubic liter of earth versus a cubic liter of fire. The earth was denser because it contained more matter under its substantial form. If you added more matter to the earth, it would become denser. It was a simple, elegant explanation, but here's where it gets truly mind-bending. Ockham tackled the idea of condensation and rarefaction, how a fire could become hotter or colder, shrinking or expanding. He argued that these weren't simply about adding or subtracting quantity. They were about the corruption of the entire quantity and the creation of a new one. Imagine a cubic liter of fire. Ockham proposed that the entire quantity was destroyed and a new quantity was created in its place, a hotter, more rarefied quantity. It was like demolishing a building and rebuilding it with a different design. He used the example of Leo the lion, imagining him with the power to annihilate cows. He argued that this power, like the power to create, would be limitless. If Leo had the power to destroy all the cows in the world, he wouldn't be equally related to each one. He would only be related to the cows that actually existed. It was a bizarre, almost unsettling thought. And then there's the question of God's role. Both Scotus and Ockham agreed that God was the ultimate cause of everything, but they disagreed on how God caused things. Scotus believed that God subtly influenced the world through accidents, like a gentle breeze shaping a cloud. Ockham believed that God simply was the cause, a boundless, omnipotent force. The debate raged on for decades, fueled by passionate arguments and intricate philosophical reasoning. Eventually, Ockham won out, his clear, logical approach proving more persuasive. His ideas became the foundation of modern philosophy, influencing thinkers for centuries to come, but even Ockham wasn't entirely satisfied. He recognized that the question of how God and the world interacted remained a profound mystery. He concluded that quantity wasn't a truly distinct thing from substance and quality, a radical departure from traditional thought. If quantity wasn't separate, then condensation and rarefaction could be explained simply by the movement of substance and quality. The scholars continued to grapple with the implications of this new understanding. They debated whether a fire could truly be hot without a subject to be heated, and whether God could create something from nothing. The questions were complex, challenging, and ultimately unanswerable. And so, the flame of intellectual curiosity continued to burn, fueled by the enduring mystery of God's relationship to the world. It's a reminder that even the most brilliant minds can't fully grasp the infinite. So if God really hated fire, why did he create it in the first place? Was it a test, a demonstration of his power? Or simply an accident of creation, a spark of chaos in an otherwise ordered universe? The answer, like the flickering flames of a medieval hearth, remains elusive.